What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the SmackDown Women Smack Talk podcast. We are going to be talking about Money in the Bank 2022. It just ended a few moments ago. We're going to run down the card, talk about all the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. And of course, we want to know what you guys have to say. So by all means, we are doing this live like we do our post shows here. We got the live chat going on. Chat it up, guys. Join us in this conversation. Who are we? Well, you should know by now, but if you don't, I am your host as always, Tony Mango. Joining me as always are Callum Wiggins.
Bleh.
And Robert DeFelice.
Welcome to this podcast, which I now call the road to John Cena's 17th world title.
We can hope in some ways. In some ways, I don't know. How is everybody feeling in the chat? If you're listening to this afterwards, of course, drop a comment below on YouTube or tweet or whatever you might do. But tell us what you're thinking. I'm feeling pretty damn good, to be perfectly honest. I know that Callum's feeling a little on the Bliss side.
This was fun. This was a fun show. A pretty meh ending. But even the ending is like, okay, cool. I believe that they have something with this person.
Yeah, to go from Forbidden Door to this, it's quite a nosedive, let's put it that way. from a show where basically every match was ranged from solid to absolutely outstanding, to a show where we had maybe one 4-star match. Yeah, I'm pretty much, don't really care about this, never going to go back to watch the show again, and all that's going to fall out of it is nothing that I'm particularly interested in. So yeah.
We're in a rare situation where I'm going to be maybe the biggest optimist out of everything.
Oh, I think that's without a doubt, because I'll be clear, like, I had a fun time, but I was also like, I didn't have to actually write up anything, so I was just sort of kind of free to move around. That's why I missed the swerve in the main event. So I'm just sort of chill.
I mean, that does help, of course, when we don't have the workload hindering us as much. I was doing my normal workload, and I'm still feeling more happy on this than I thought. But let's see. Checking with this chat, we got Peter, we got Ted, we got William, we've got guest 5. We got a super chat from Marquise that says, "Ugh, Vince," and some middle fingers and an angry face. I see Dane's in the chat. Theory it's a star. See, well done to Jeff Hardy for winning Money in the Bank. Let's see. So we are going to be, of course, checking out these comments. Keep chatting it up, everyone. We're going to tune in with this every once in a while. Let's just start diving into it. We had another one of these kickoffs that we've been having recently where they just don't have anything at all happen for it. So it was an entire hour of just talking and not really anything to talk about there, except for the fact that they really did just say, we don't want to have that stipulation for the tag team titles, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. I mean, they didn't specifically say that on the kickoff, but that was the only thing that they could have done was to announce anything, and it was just recaps and stuff. Somebody wanted to take a picture with Montez Ford, so that was kind of funny. But other than that, we started off the actual pay-per-view itself with the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which, of course, we know the competitors are. If you don't, go back and check out the previous things or any information that's out there on the internet. We don't need to run that down. This was...
We need to say who's in the match, because we're going to talk about the match.
Well, I mean, we're going to say, but I mean, I'm not going to be like Alexa Bliss versus Asuka versus, that whole thing. This was a lot of color coordination going on tonight for everybody's ring attire. We had... Shotzi and Raquel were wearing like the same kind of reddish thing. We had the pink brigade, and then we had the green brigade and everything. Later on in the tag title match, everybody was wearing red and so on and so forth. But this match, to open up the card and everything, was botchy. I'll admit that. It was a fun segment, but there were so many different opportunities for something to go wrong, and thankfully people just narrowly didn't get hurt. There was one spot where Shotzi was trying to run up the ladder and do like a Kofi or a Shelton, didn't come anywhere close to that. She just got like one wrong end and then fell. Liv did another version of that like a moment later. It wasn't really quite the same, but whatever. Liv, I mean, she did a sunset flip over Evans and Rodriguez that I was like, because I'm like, oh my god, she's gonna fall and she's gonna hit her head, or she's gonna slam Lacey on her head. I was really nervous about that one. This is botchy. Don't go around it. Don't be like, oh, yeah, but whatever. They really shouldn't be doing some of these things. But I still enjoyed the segment. We'll talk about the winner and everything else going on forward. But what did you guys think about the match itself?
We are in a time where these matches are expected. You have to do Miss Money in the Bank. And I feel like some of the competitors were, I don't want to say unprepared, because some of them have been in the ladder matches before, but there was something way off with the actual flow of this match.
Brandon in the chat said Shotzi botched legit all her spots. I think she might have been the one that was botching the most. Yeah, I didn't really keep track 100%, but what about you, Callum? Anybody stand out to you on that front that kind of was like, all right, that's the culprit more than anyone?
Oh, it was Shotzi. 100% it was Shotzi. That was completely off her game. Whereas the run-up ladder spot, she then did an electric chair to Alexa Bliss, which sent Alexa tumbling into a standing ladder, which I think clearly wasn't supposed to happen. Then she also did her senton dive off the top rope and managed to land on the ladder right on the back of her head.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that happened.
Yeah. So, yeah, if I was to describe this match in one word, should I say, it would be reckless. It was completely out of control even with people, nobody was immune to botching spots or doing something that they probably shouldn't have been doing. We can even talk about the fact that Becky Lynch, Becky Lynch and Asuka, the two most experienced people in this match and the two most competent wrestlers out of the two, out of all the people involved. Becky, when she went to do her dive through Asuka, leg drop through a ladder bridge, she overshot it and she basically landed on her coccyx, going through Asuka. Almost probably could have tweaked her knee by how far that she went over it and just landing on the floor. Yeah, everything was all over the place. There were some good spots, like the Liv Morgan. She showed that sunset flip powerbomb. She showed incredible control to manage to fit that within the small amount of space that she had to land that powerbomb in. So I've got to give her credit for that. But overall, I thought this match was just a car crash, and not in a good way, because I understand that some people would have found this fun and entertaining. So, they worked hard, but I would also go along the lines of saying that I couldn't enjoy or invest myself in this match because I just thought that someone was going to get injured, especially with the spate of injuries we've had recently.
Yeah, that's where I want to clarify the difference between me saying I enjoyed this segment and thinking that it's fun versus I didn't think it was a good match. You know what I mean? Because it's not. I mean, it's one of the things that you pointed out a couple of them, but pretty much any one of those big spots was botched in some fashion. And it was very nerve-wracking to watch people doing that. But at the same time, I'll give credit to the hot crowd. Asuka started this match off fired up as all hell. And anytime that she in particular started to get a lot of momentum on her way, the crowd was super into it. They were really digging everybody seemingly except for Lacey Evans, which I feel a little bit bad for. But then Lacey seemed to just kind of be like, all right, then fuck you all. Because they were not. That was, if you were to rank the people based off of their responses, I would think Asuka was arguably number one, maybe number two. Liv and Becky, of course, had their major supporters. Alexa Bliss had their major supporters. Shotzi, it seemed like people weren't really that into, but they were kind of into the idea that maybe it would be kind of a surprise. Raquel, pretty weak response. Lacey, people did not want her to win.
I did find a tweet quite funny, and again, maybe it's in bad taste, but either way, it was a case of there was a spot in the match where Lacey was, I think Raquel climbs up under Lacey Evans, and they're both like at the top of the ladder, and I think someone tweeted both thought they were storming the Capitol, climbing up the Capitol.
Oh no!
So yeah, I think the Lacey Evans experiment is like she has to turn heel. eventually the people don't get behind her as a baby face. And I don't know why. Well, I think it's just the history and legacy of Lacey Evans, and also the fact that this whole character is a little bit. It depends what audience you're playing in front of, and it seems that a lot more nowadays. A lot of wrestling fans seem to lean a bit more left leaning than maybe in the past.
Let's be clear, no one right now is like, yeah, she's doing an America gimmick. Hell yeah. That only seems to work for one person, and Cody Rhodes is not on this card.
I mean, we'll talk about the Cody thing a little bit later too, but
I would say that I think that reaction-wise, they were clearly like the 4 stars of this match, and they were the ones that were getting the biggest reaction. But I would say in terms of actual performance, I'd say, as we'll get to, and I guess rightly so that she ended up winning it, because I thought Liv was the best performer in this match.
Shout out to Liv, who
she got all her spots right, pretty much. With basically a match where you're basically counting who's actually doing what they're supposed to be doing well. She had a spot that, considering all the botches that took place in this match, she had a spot that could easily have gone wrong towards the end of this match, where she had to bounce off one, essentially bounce off the rope.
With her foot on the rope and bounce backward.
Yeah, bounce back and then use that to eventually climb up and secure the briefcase. But yeah, that could have easily gone wrong, and she stuck to her guns. She got the sunset flip powerbomb right. So yeah, Liv lived up to her standards, lived up to the standards that this match should be delivering, and I think that other people fell short of that.
And Liv Morgan, of course, took that into an actual win, which I was not seeing coming at all. We all said Becky, I'm pretty sure, right?
We all said Becky.
Yeah,
we were all wrong.
I think I said in our group chat earlier that I was this close to switching to Liv Morgan. I actually switched to Liv Morgan and then switched back to Becky earlier in the day, because I just I had a feeling that, because again, as we talk about the main event, I was so confident that heel was going to win the men's Money in the Bank that maybe they'll do the whole, this is the Biggie, the Nikki ASH spot, where they give someone who everyone feels like deserves an opportunity at the world title, give them that nice feel-good win. And it turned out this was the case. But I decided to just play it safe and go with Becky, but didn't work out.
Yeah, huge surprise, just because it was like Liv was teetering on that Dolph Ziggler spot of they're never going to give her anything. She's just there.
Oh, Rob, she is that Dolph Ziggler spot, because she's now got the briefcase, and we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about what happens later.
You're right.
And now because I think you'll find Dolph Ziggler had a couple of world title reigns, and then he just went into nowhere. So yeah, don't worry, she is definitely on that path. But yeah, she's just in the peak of that path right now.
Yeah, but this was cool. Genuine emotion. One of those wrestlers like E, like a Nikki or a Kofi, where everybody, as soon as she won, was just like, yes, this is the right call. Good for her. She's finally getting something. And we'll talk about more later, because one tradition that isn't stopping is the Miss Money in the Bank canceled on the briefcase.
So they did transition then to the United States Championship match. Bobby Lashley against the current champion at the time, at the very least, Theory, because we have a brand new United States champion. Bobby Lashley had what I thought was a better match than I was expecting. I enjoyed this from start to finish. The crowd was still hot. They had some great back and forth action between the two of them. And yeah, there was a couple little things that didn't go 100%. Lashley was supposed to catch Theory. He didn't fully catch him at one spot, but he followed that up with another thing later on where Theory was rolling into the ring and Lashley caught him, picked him up, put him in a power slam move and did that. That was great. And with a hurt lock, we got a brand new champion. I enjoyed it.
I should have went with my gut. I'm really upset about this one as far as the predictions wise, because I said on the predictions podcast, Lashley's winning the belt. And then I was like, no, they're going to give it to Theory. I'll say Theory, and I should have just stuck to my guns. Fun match.
Yeah, I thought this was a very solid match. I think Lashley performed really well. Theory did what he needed to do well. I think that, there were some cool power spots on the outside, like Lashley slamming Theory with just holding him up and slamming him into the ring post was a good spot. Had the gorilla press from catching Theory, transitioning out of like Theory hitting the spear, getting super cocky about him winning. Lashley gets out of that, applies the hurt lock, forces him to tap out. Yeah, it's I did stick to Lashley winning, and I got my rewards for it. And I went in with the assumption that I thought Theory was going to win by DQ. Well, not Theory was going to win by DQ. Lashley would win by either DQ or count out, and Theory would still be champion. But either way, I still get
you still get the point for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was another segment where I was like, hey, look, the previous one had some botches, but I still enjoyed it. This match was good. Not sure if I love the outcome, but we'll see where this goes. And then we went into the Raw Women's Championship match. Bianca Belair successfully retaining over Carmella in what I thought was another pretty damn good match overall. Carmella took it to Belair, and whether it was the extra bit of training that Corey Graves was saying that they were doing, or if it was just the atmosphere or what, I thought that they had a great contest.
I loved the straight to the point finish of this, which I think more matches need, where Carmella was in control. They were having a back and forth, and she slapped Bianca, and Bianca just got up and was like, all right, match is over, because now I'm just going to drop your ass to KOD. And 1, 2, 3. And I feel like that was an appropriate finish for a feud that was basically Carmella's here to lose, and even if she put up a good fight, she was here to lose. So I like that. Very definitive. Bianca goes over strong.
Yeah, I thought this was terrible.
Really?
Well, it wasn't terrible. When I say it was terrible, it's like Carmella did nothing in this match. She hit like 2 super kicks and applied a rest hold, and that was kind of it, really. Like, I'm just saying, it was 7 minutes 10. It was 7 minutes and 10 minutes. 7 minutes and 10 seconds long. I think about 6 minutes of that was Bianca just beating up Carmella, and then the rest of it was Carmella hit 2 super kicks. That's kind of it, really. That was the extent of her offense. She got a couple of covers in, and she slapped Bianca in the face, and then Bianca just immediately flattened her with a KOD. It was probably the most decisive championship match I've seen in a long time. And
that's
then,
what I liked about it, though. Isn't that the way it should go?
But Rob, I would have liked it, and then Carmella attacked Bianca after the match, so they're going to keep feuding over the championship.
That
so what's the fucking point of? Yeah, so the whole thing is you have Bianca beat Carmella decisively. It was so unbelievably one-sided. It was a 90-10% match. Bianca absolutely wiped the floor with her, proved that she is 100% better. And then Carmella attacked her after the bell, and that means they're going to have another match on Raw, which we don't need to see because the outcome is in no doubt whatsoever. Like, why do this stuff? It's utter shit.
So as much as I did like this segment, I hated how that part ended because, yeah, it's the same exact thing we've seen a million times, which is we probably don't have anything else, so let's just keep the feud going. And they're just going to have more matches.
More on Raw. And I think that they did this spot because it was a red herring. Because you're like, oh shit, champion's down. Where's Liv? I think that's the only reason they did this.
Now, I'm hoping that if they are just following this up with the same thing, that it's not going to be like, okay, they have a match on Raw, it ends in a DQ, then that sets up some kind of another thing, and they have a tag team match or whatever, and then at SummerSlam, it's the two of them again. Because we don't need to see another one between these two at SummerSlam. But for this itself, I enjoyed the match. I liked Corey Graves' joke, by the way. He was like, you know, after Carmella wins and we're celebrating, we might even renew our vows again. Triple H told me of a great spot here in Vegas. I thought that was great. And then we get the thing that made the crowd boo arguably the most in the entire night, which was a commercial for the WWE Credit One card. And I'm like, we're gonna get another fucking commercial. It's Alexa Bliss going into her locker room, and Lily has bought a whole bunch of merchandise, and it's not funny.
This poor. Okay, I'm thankful that it was a pre-tape and that they don't have to like actively try to do this with the booze going on, because people were just like, "Fuck this, fuck this whole spot." It's fine. It was an ad for a credit card that they're partnered with. I popped just because the crowd booed. Like you would think they were expecting something serious to happen with the doll.
No, they're just like, oh, boo this fucking credit card thing. And I was, if I would have been in the arena, I would have booed too. That commercials on a fucking pay-per-view, please, especially if they're not funny. But I had some other boos a little bit later on. One of them not being the undisputed WWE Tag Team title match, because the Usos and the Street Profits had a hell of a match. I saw some people going, wow, this is really boring. And I'm like, okay.
I told you guys, and this is pretty much the best way I can sum it up. If you're going to do an Uso storyline where they can't lose, the least you can do is tear down the house. And they tore down the house. This match was fucking awesome.
You got, of course, Montez Ford flipping around all over the place. I don't know how he's able to do that. You got at least like 6 or so near falls that got the crowd and myself for some of them, where everybody was just like, okay, this is the end of the match. Oh my God, they got to get out there. For one in particular, the Frog Splash one, it was like, but you know what? It kind of seems like they might win. Like they got me on that one. And at the end of it, the Street Profits are complaining and they're talking about how it was Tez, right? That guy got pinned, I think. Yeah. That his shoulder was up, and they immediately show the footage of it too. So it's not even like, okay, we're going to wait until tomorrow and we're going to try to, find the right camera angle. They figured it out. They had the bad call thing, and now we have a reason to do this again, which normally I'd be like, oh my God, we're seeing this again. Just the same as with the Carmella thing. Like, I don't want to see repeats, but like Rob just said, if you got a hell of a match like that, okay, I'm down for watching number 2.
And honestly, I know it's like, oh, they're going to run it back, but when you've got 4 tag teams of note, if you're going to run this back, I'm fine with it. I think having Tez have the gripe, I enjoyed that, like, Tez showed real fire. He even said, like, why the fuck did the match stop? My shoulder was up. I really enjoyed that. It seems like it mattered to them. And this was fantastic. The only thing I did not get was they randomly started talking about Caleb Braxton says they have issues. The Street Profits have issues with one another.
Right.
And I'm like, where did that come from?
She mentioned it on the kickoff too, where she was just like, oh, well, you guys gonna get along? I've been hearing that you haven't had any issues or something. But it's like,
I get that. Like, okay, eventually you're gonna have to split them because Montez is such a star that he has to go solo one day. But like, it just seems so random that, hey, right before you finally get a tag title match, you have problems with one another, and that's the story we're gonna tell. Also, they didn't choose a stipulation because nobody cared about that, I guess, so they said fuck it.
But they at least have the option now that they can do the match with a stipulation at SummerSlam. So despite the fact that they should never have been like, hey, if you win, you get to pick the stipulation and then completely fucking forget about it and ignore it, I'm going to overlook that a little bit if they give them a stipulation for SummerSlam. If it's just another rematch, I'm going to be like, what the fuck? Sing some praises, Cal. Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah, well, I will sing praises about something that's actually good on the show. So, yeah, this was the best match, I think, on the card by a considerable margin. Even though we have seen these two mix it up before, and basically every single configuration of singles match in the build up to this show, they still went above and beyond to try and make this a special match. And as I said, there were tons of great near falls, tons of great double team moves and spots. And I think there was actually some really good camera work in this match as well, which is not something that I often say about WWE stuff, but I think they worked it really well in this match. And that helped elevate some of the things where you got to see like one of the Usos diving in to try and break up a pinfall at the very last second, and you only see them dive in right when like it's halfway through the 2 count. And yeah, it was just all really well put together. I think that the shoulder up does mean that obviously we'll get the rematch, but I feel like that was a clever way of doing it because there's a legitimate gripe there. There's a legitimate reason to have the rematch at SummerSlam, hopefully in a more either violent or interesting stipulation. Like it could range anywhere from like 2 out of 3 falls to like a street fight or a falls count anywhere match.
I'm thinking more of like the 2 out of 3 falls thing because we do have that last man standing, so that's going to kind of fill in that street fight vibe, you know?
Yeah, I think you'd be utterly stupid not to give the Street Profits the titles at SummerSlam if they do go that route. I think even though they have been sowing the seeds and that whole splitting up thing, I think that came from the talking segment they had on SmackDown. Because it was like, wasn't that the thing, was the asked the teams anything, and Kayla Braxton asked the Usos, are you scared about losing your titles on Sunday? And they said no, and then she turns to the Street Profits and says, hey, I hear you guys are splitting up soon. It's just like, so
which
I think
is
that's
ridiculous. Like, I don't know, it's just so silly to me.
I'm still, even though I've said this multiple times beforehand, I just don't see why you need to split up Ford and Dawkins. You can make Ford a singles guy without him breaking up with Street Profits. Like, you can have him go after the Intercontinental title or the United States title or the World title even, and still be in a tag team with Angelo Dawkins. Because the fact of the matter is that as soon as you break up that team, Dawkins is done.
Pretty much. And then they probably, based off of the track record of what they've done both at plenty of other people in the past, they probably will stop doing something with Ford anyway. And then a few months down the line, they're just going to pair both of them up with some other tag team that's not going to be as good.
Yeah, so why not just say, okay, we're going to run with Ford and give him a singles title win and just have you as, you know, you're still going to team up with him. You'll be more in a management position or somebody that's, you know, that Ford's challenges, if he becomes like Intercontinental champion or US champion or something like that, you're someone that they can be on the way to fighting Ford. It's like, it's a role. It's like, it still gives him a position of prominence. It means that when Ford is not doing a singles feud, they can still team up and do stuff. Yeah, I don't see what the obsession is of having to split the teams up, but
well, like, they even tried to split up the New Day, and it never worked. Like, they put E solo, and it never worked. For some reason, they just had this mindset that, like, they have to split up.
But doubtless that's probably what they'll do, and I think that I'm hoping that at least they win the titles at SummerSlam, because it would be a feel-good moment, and it's not like the Usos can't win it back like a month or a month and a half later, or I don't know, just switch it to another team. It's not like the Usos need to be tag team champions. Like, the whole thing is built around Roman Reigns, so you don't need the Usos to be tag champions. They're still going to be there supporting Roman anyway.
But can they be the ones if they're not the ones?
Yes.
I think so.
Dane in the chat says, super chat here, we need a barbershop segment with the Street Profits. What would you guys name a talking segment for the Street Profits?
No, I think he means they need to do a Michael.
They need to, like, he needs to throw him through a window.
Oh, yeah. So I'm thinking you're talking about like the barbershop set in a different way. Well,
I like that they do the barbershop thing for not for Tez, for Hayes on NXT.
Yeah, they do have that. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, yeah. Well, then, twofold. Number one, the question I asked, even though it's not the right one. And now I'm curious. What would you name it? Talking segment for the Street Profits. Peter says hot like smoke.
Smoke shop.
Smoke
like,
shop.
You know, like one of those, like, you just get the smoke paraphernalia, and I think they could make that work. Do like That 70 Show 360 camera.
The only thing I could think of at first was where there's smoke, there's fire, but that's way too fucking long.
That's too long.
Any thoughts, Cal?
No. Stupid question.
Ted says street talking. As far as the barbershop segment with, the HBK turn goes, I mean, I don't want them to split up as it is, unless they have a firm plan in place to actually push Montez forward. Because realistically, more than likely, Dawkins isn't going to get a major push. So we're already jumping to the whole Genity discussion, but I don't want to run that risk and lose the Street Profits just to end up being like, okay, well, Tez had a couple of wins and fizzled out. But if it happens, I mean, I'm curious about the idea of Montez Ford as a heel singles guy. Maybe in the future. I don't know.
I'm sure we'll get something like that one day.
So then after this, we had a video package about Kevin Owens, which, throughout the night they did a whole thing with the Miz and whatnot. They love filling time. We know that this is a little bit of a Peacock thing too, because of course Peacock is the same with the other streaming services, which is all like, hey, let's be cable and not have any kind of commercials if you pay for it, but then let's add commercials and have you pay for it. And then after that, we had another little strange vignette, which included what a lot of people were like, oh my God, this is Bray Wyatt. And then there are gold medals, and there's a license plate that says Latino Heat and everything. And I'm thinking, okay, the gold medals, Gable Steveson, okay, whatever. I did not pick up on the Latino Heat thing or pretty much any of the other iconography. But Rob here immediately picked up on that. And you're probably still getting likes on that tweet that you put up, right?
Yeah, my phone hasn't stopped, which is nice, but it's like, I did the same thing, because at first I asked you guys, I said, is that like Wyatt? What's happening here? And then I really went and looked at it, and I said, okay, gold medals, Latino Heat, I think those are Jeff Hardy's armbands, it's Edge. And then someone told me, I believe it was John Alba, that said Dudley Boy glasses as well. So it's Edge, it's old Edge rival iconography. It's a really cool way to bring him back after a stupid turn that went nowhere.
What do you think about it, Callum?
It seems like it's pretty clearly going to be Edge. I mean, essentially, I'm just going by the tweet that WrestleVotes put out there that I think Rob retweeted for his.
Yeah, and actually, that's what blew it up, was that WrestleVotes was like, yep, essentially just saying, yeah, that's where we're going.
Yeah, essentially, don't get your hopes up about this. It's not going to be Bray Wyatt. It's not going to be any sort of special new debut. It's just, Edge has got a new gimmick.
I don't think it's a new gimmick either. I think he's just, like, they're tying in, like, the old You Think You Know Me vignettes with, hey, look at all the cool shit he's done because he is a Hall of Fame guy.
I just like to think that, like, they haven't done anything with Judgment Day since that happened. So it's not like, oh, they're going to just, like, fast track a feud with Finn Balor out of the back of this. Or are they just going to go in a completely different direction and just say, okay, that thing happened, and now Judgment Day are just a mid-card act, and Edge is going to do something else because Edge is the star.
I'm kind of assuming it's going to be Edge and AJ Styles against Damian Priest and Finn Balor at SummerSlam.
I think we're just getting Edge and Balor, and then we'll move on.
You know what's weird, though? Out of all the things that they've done with Edge, they've had, like, the Brood character comes back for a little bit. They've even had him play around temporarily, but they've had him play around with the kazoo before. They never have him go back to original Edge. I'd like to see them do that for one night. Just the angry, running in the street kind of guy.
That's kind of vibe. And it wasn't for him.
No, but it's like do some kind of a tweak to it, but acknowledge it,
No, he's never come back as Sexton Hardcastle either. I don't know why.
He should.
He had sex in a ring. I think that counts for something.
There's some kind of a segment where he mentions the Sexton Hardcastle thing too. Why not? Go back to him being a little kid watching Hogan and Warrior too.
I think you're just saying you want time travel.
Well, I mean, I do. So, yeah, all signs pointing towards Edge. Which, right in time for SummerSlam, so that makes sense. But I guess we're going to have to find out tomorrow night on Raw, or not tomorrow night, It's because today's Saturday.
Monday.
It keeps throwing me off. Monday night on Raw or elsewhere, what their plan is for that. After that, we got the SmackDown Women's Championship match. And I had typed out, let me just prep up Ronda Rousey retained before this match gets started. My only notes throughout this whole thing were that note. Then there was, I never buy into Natalya as a heel. She just never acts natural. Like when she's yelling at the commentary team to shut up, just didn't seem like it, it was just forced. And then I wrote, the momentum of this pay-per-view has come to a screeching halt. And then Ronda Rousey retained by submission. This match itself, I got nothing to say about it. This was easily the least.
People were not into this match, dude. People were like, whatever. They must have said bitch to each other at least half a dozen times. But people were not feeling this match. And I guess serves them right. I think they worked as hard as they could, but it wasn't a good match. Yeah. Maybe Cal can expand on that.
No, this match was dull as shit. It's like, it was so... But the thing is, I can almost imagine it, at least in Natalya's head, that she thinks this is the greatest match that's ever been put together, and it's such an epic, and it's an epic story, and it's like a fight atmosphere, and it's not really. It's a bunch of... The crowd is completely apathetic towards everything that's going on because they knew the result was a foregone conclusion, and they're not into Ronda Rousey in the same way they're into Bianca Belair, so it doesn't even have that going for it. And it was just really slow and methodical, and the fact is they tried to make the feud really personal, so why didn't they go in there and try and beat the shit out of each other? No, they just kept trying to put each other in holds and out-wrestle each other. Like, you can't just, shout bitch while you're putting them in an arm bar or some sort of arm hold or whatever, and just think that that's going to get people super invested. And they just kept transitioning out of, from one ankle, the ankle lock into the sharpshooter, and if it was done with any kind of, rapidity or fluidness, then I think it would look really cool, but they were just doing it really slowly. And the best part of the match was Ronda Rousey applying the sharpshooter and doing the HBK pose while she was doing it. That was cool. That was a very nice touch that she added to it. But other than that, I thought this was just really, really bland and forgettable, and even the finish looks a bit awkward because she didn't really tap out to the armbar. She tapped out the fact that she was getting choked out by both of Ronda's feet crossing over. So, yeah, I thought it was a flat match with a flat ending.
Chat, we got Brandon says this match was mad, but the live thing after was a shock. We'll talk about that in a moment. Dane says Ariel Helwani said he completely falls asleep when Ronda's on TV.
Which is a surprise because he's an MMA guy. He likes Ronda, but I guess he's just being honest. Ronda's most recent run hasn't been stellar.
And now it's over for this part because right after that, we get Liv Morgan cashing in, and if she has a little bit of a hiccup, she makes the crowd, of course, petrified that Ronda Rousey is going to retain, but she gets a roll up. And 1, 2, 3, Liv Morgan is the new SmackDown Women's Champion. And
before anything else, did you think that Ronda might actually tap her out?
Yes.
Okay.
For a split. Well, first off, I didn't think Liv Morgan was going to win, so that was already a shock. Then earlier in the night, she says that, WrestleMania is sounding pretty good, but I guess I'll just wait. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're saying that because they don't have a game plan yet. And that's her way of saying, look, I'm not going to cash in anytime soon. That's your excuse. And then when they had her music play, I was just like, okay, they're doing this because they're going to say, gotcha. And Ronda Rousey retains, and then we don't have to worry about it, and we just get it out of the way. And, Liv Morgan, she had it in her grasp, and she still lost. What an underdog, blah, blah, blah. Did not anticipate that she was actually going to be walking out of this with the SmackDown Women's title. Because if any of these things would have happened, I would have thought, okay, well, Belair is the one that somebody's going to cash in on. I mentioned the Raquel Rodriguez thing earlier in our predictions, where I was just like, if anybody cashes in, it's the only thing that makes any sense is this and that and that and that. But I just assumed that Ronda Rousey, the whole game plan was, let's waste all these fucking time leading up to WrestleMania and all that with the underwhelming stuff that they did, so that way we can have her be champion on Fox leading up till the next WrestleMania, and that's going to really help them out with we gave you Ronda Rousey and everything. And I'm like, now we got Liv Morgan. And Liv Morgan gets a hug from Ronda Rousey, and I don't know where they're going to go from here. First off, the Ronda Rousey thing, do you guys think that this is more of giving the belt to Liv, or do you think it's more of getting the belt off Ronda?
It's giving the belt to Liv.
Go ahead, Cal.
I don't want to talk about it yet.
Okay. Then I'll just chime in. I think they're just giving the belt to Liv. I think, first of all, the switch to have her now on SmackDown is certainly a choice. I do wonder if part of this would have been Liv wins and then cashes in on Rhea, but Rhea just was going to be out too long. I would not have had Liv Morgan beat Ronda Rousey, personally. Whether she had a match or not, it wasn't even one of her most grueling matchups. And then Liv Morgan is the second person to beat Ronda, with the only other person, or I guess third, because the only other two are Becky and Charlotte. It just feels off. And whether it's in a three-way or a one-on-one to Charlotte, I don't see her getting out of SummerSlam with the belt.
Ted in the chat says Liv's doing awesome while Ruby and Viking Lady are doing nada. Viking Lady, her real name. Ruby's. Yeah, Ruby couldn't even win that Owen Hart tournament. But I don't want to go straight into the negative, but we got to talk about it. Is Charlotte Flair winning the fucking title at SummerSlam?
So, I mean, someone is. You'd assume so, anyway. So, I'll go into the whole diatribe now because I might as well get out of the way. This is just absolute horseshit of the highest regard, and it's not due to the fact that it's not even due to the fact that I don't think Liv Morgan's good. She is good. I don't think she is I'd say worthy of beating Ronda Rousey. It's a fixed show. They can do whatever the fuck they want. They could have Tamina come out and roll up Ronda Rousey at any point in time, and doesn't even need a briefcase, and it would still be the case. But I would just I just don't think that you have her win the briefcase and then you spend several months with her holding the briefcase in meaningful feuds, building up her reputation until she finally cashes in, and then it feels like a bigger moment and she's established. Right now, she is someone who was firmly in the mid-card, maybe had gotten like a few opportunities, and everyone talks about how, I can't wait for Liv Morgan to finally get her shot at the title, even though she had a shot at the title earlier this year when she was fighting Becky Lynch for it, but people seem to have forgotten that completely. And then she gets the win over Ronda Rousey the same night, so she's like every other woman who's cashed in Money in the Bank, except Carmella, who actually did elevate herself by holding the briefcase.
Mm-hmm. Every single woman has only lasted 24 hours.
Yeah, and this means she's just another Nikki ASH. She has had absolutely no opportunity with the belt to build up her character, because realistically, Liv Morgan doesn't have a character. Her character is, doesn't Liv work hard? And I'm sure she does work hard. And I'm going to ask you two very, very clearly right now. Can you name me one great Liv Morgan match?
The one she had with Becky on Raw was okay.
Can you name one where she was the best part of the match that she was in?
Well, according to you, this
I was just going to say this one.
This. Well, but that wasn't a great match.
Fair point.
So yeah,
I like how we both did the undercut joke of just like, hey, fucker.
But she was the best part of a poorly put together match. But I think that she hasn't done enough to really establish like why there is such a groundswell of support surrounding her when she's an average talker. She's slightly above average wrestler. She's definitely improving. She works hard and she has a lot of commitment and dedication. You can clearly see that she has a lot of an emotion, and you can like feel a groundswell of support around her, and you can feel that this means a lot to her. But at the end of the day, she doesn't have the actual performance ability to back up that enthusiasm, and that's a level that a lot of people are at. And if people think that this is going to be her shot up to like main event status and being like a long-term fixture there, no, because her name is not Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, Bayley, or Sasha Banks, or Bianca Belair. And if Sasha, obviously, that'll be gone. I don't think Liv's there to fill her space. Essentially, she is a stopgap, one-time women's champion that she can always hang her hat on, and she will be the Dolph-Ziggler of the women's division going forward, which is pretty much what Carmella is. Because Carmella had that title win, she held it for a little while, and then she lost it and has never won it back since.
And a lot of people in the past have done that, men or women. You know, like Alicia Fox was champion, and
Big E just did
Big E, yeah. You know, I mean, it happens and everything, and it's not something that you can wish for to be like, okay, you won the title, and now the big thing's done, and you know, okay, moving on.
I hope she has won this title now, and she has a fantastic reign, and this is like a real big boost to her career. But just
realistically, it's not going to happen.
With the realistic specs on, it's just a case of who did she lose to? Who did she lose the title to at SummerSlam? Is it Ronda? Is it Charlotte? Is it Bayley? That's kind of the three that I've got lined up in my head right now.
I'm all right with Bayley for this reason. Bayley versus Liv Morgan in a one-on-one feud for pay-per-view is something different. Charlotte, there's the story there because Charlotte did call Liv out that one time, and then Liv left and came back as Lana's lover, and that went nowhere. But there is that loose tie there. Ronda, I don't know.
The big question is surrounding Ronda in general, which is the fact that she's no longer the women's champion, and at least, the speculation is that she's going to be fighting Becky Lynch for some kind of women's title at WrestleMania next year. That seems to be the plan, that she would have Charlotte this year and then she'd have Becky one-on-one the following year. And I don't know how you could angle it by having Ronda go over to Raw in the Superstar Shake-Up. So that's one way you could do it. I would have envisioned that Ronda would win the match at WrestleMania, considering the fact that I don't know how long her contract is, but it may be long enough to get through that. Or maybe it's just a case that Ronda's done now.
Bro,
Ronda does have that in her to just say, "Yeah, I'm bored of this." Or
let me fucking tell you something. Because I said this last year not last year. I said this in January when they brought it back. Do the fucking Becky match. That's the only thing people want to see. Don't tell me you got till next year, because you've proven time and again that you don't pull things off when you wait for them. Do the Becky match. If they don't do the Becky match, I'm going to be really mad. Just because that's something that should have absolutely happened.
I don't care that it doesn't happen, to be honest.
I don't care if you don't care. I care because it should have happened.
I feel like we didn't need to get Ronda Rousey against anybody. I feel like when she lost to that in that main event of WrestleMania, I was like, all right, she's done. We don't need to see her again anymore, because they're not going to do that 4-on-4 match and then moving on.
Why didn't they do that 4-on-4 match?
Because they're fucking stupid and they think that they can do everything later down in the line. The same thing as why we didn't get Sting and Undertaker. Same thing as why, the other things that go along with that. But the Peter in the chat says, I think Ronda's leaving for mom time. If they don't have Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam, seems kind of weird to be like, we're going to do this big stadium show and we're going to be missing one of our biggest attractions. Because, look, I like Liv Morgan, but despite the fact that she's got this massive following on, Twitter stands and whatnot, she is not the same draw as Ronda Rousey. It's just definitive. I mean, that you could say that for every single person on the women's roster, or most of the people on the men's roster as well. Almost nobody is going to draw as much attention as Ronda Rousey, just definitively. So it kind of hurts that SummerSlam build if she's not on there. If she is on there, I can't imagine Ronda Rousey is going to lose to Liv Morgan in a singles match. And then if they do a triple threat match or something and they include somebody else in there, then is that person just going to beat Liv Morgan, and that way Ronda Rousey loses and she doesn't really lose another time and everything? And it's tough to not be down on the idea that more than likely a few weeks from now, Liv Morgan's not going to be champion anymore. But then the alternative is something else that I had seen people tweeting out or whatever. They were like, yeah, get ready to...
Streamer,
No, not that one. I was going to say people going like, get ready to strap your boots in for Liv Morgan versus Lacey Evans, which is like, yeah, you know what? I really don't want to see that feud.
When is Extreme Rules? Because I can see that being an Extreme Rules match. But right now, their next two things are huge shows. They got SummerSlam in the Nashville Stadium, and they got Clash at the Castle.
Yeah, like ignoring, of course, like Great American Bash and whatnot. And then Extreme Rules is after that on October 8th. Then you got Crown Jewel November 5th, and then Survivor Series November 26th. So I don't know where this goes. I like the moment of, hey, cool, Liv Morgan is now champion. She can cross that off her bucket list, and that's neat. And I like seeing people win the world title for the first time. I like knowing that somebody who cares is winning and the people are happy. I love, like, you know, Kevin Owens being like, fuck yes, you know, super happy about that. But I am nervous that we're going to look back on this in a few weeks and be like, oh, that was shit. Because it happened with so many other people in the past, including Nikki ASH.
Year when I told you, like, I'm afraid to say it because people are super high on E, but I think that we're going to look back and say E's win was a waste of time. You know? And
it was.
I think...
Outside of the fact that it happened. And once it happened, then it was just, like, crap after that point. But I hope this isn't the peak for her. And I'm currently thinking Flair is going to be the next champion. And I'm leaning towards that direction of Flair and Raquel at WrestleMania. But I have no idea what they're going to do with Ronda Rousey in the meantime.
They could keep Ronda out and then just draft her to Raw.
Maybe.
Then, yeah, that's what you do with that.
I don't want her winning the Royal Rumble.
No, I do think we get a repeat winner. I think it's Becky, though.
So you're thinking that Rousey wins the Raw Women's Championship? Maybe beats Bianca?
I think she could just beat Bianca. If it comes to that, but we still don't know.
Where are you thinking they're going, Callum?
I mean, I can't look too far ahead in terms of Liv Morgan's reign. I think that I could easily envision a situation where she loses it on SmackDown.
Like in 5 days?
Yep. Essentially, the clock's ticking at this point, and I have zero faith because they've had a lot bigger names win their first title by cashing in the briefcase and have, like, absolutely nothing happening reigns. Like, one reign with the title, and it's gone absolutely nowhere off the back of it. So I can't envision anything different happening for Liv because they've given me no reason not to. Again, hope for the best and hope that it does work out for her, but I have absolutely zero belief that will happen. I think they will move Ronda over to Raw, and I don't know which one of them. I don't know what configuration they'll end up. At the end of the day, it's not a match that needs a title anyway, if they do decide to do it, so they might even just bypass it being a championship match altogether. But they have shown in the past that even though a match has a feud and a backstory and could be heated up enough to not even need to merit having a championship attached to it, they'll still attach a championship to it anyway. So one of them will be Raw Women's Champion going into that show. I just don't know which way they'll do it. Or Ronda's just done, and it's like nice little experiment. They decide to just get the belt off of her, transition out to Liv Morgan is a good moment. Again, it's just the age-old story with these cash-ins. That's a great moment for the person who cashed in. Don't hold your breath for it to be the thing that really is a real game changer for their long-term career.
I will say this. We know Ronda and Natty are close. maybe she did just decide, I don't want to do this anymore, and I want my last match to be with Natty. Could just be that. And technically speaking, yeah, on the books, it's going to say she had a match with Liv Morgan that was, 11 seconds long, or whatever the fuck it was. But for all intents and purposes, she had a match with Natty, drops the belt, doesn't look angry about it, and goes like, it's your new champion. There you go.
Yeah, that's the other weird thing about it. It was the fact that she hugged Liv Morgan after Liv Morgan essentially did a heel move, which is going in, attacking an injured champion and
getting a roll up.
They get a roll up as well after being, basically they had a 30 second long match, and Ronda had her in the ankle lock pretty much that entire time until Liv rolled her up. And yeah, so it's not exactly the most babyface and valiant victory for Liv Morgan, so Ronda should be justified in trying to want to beat the shit out of her afterwards. But no, she has to hug her because she's meant to be a babyface, even though people are very apathetic towards her. And actually turning her heel would probably be the thing that would revitalize her run on the roster if it is continuing.
So it's pretty interesting. It's a story that we're going to have to track going forward that we don't know, how this is going to play out. And by the time we get around to WrestleMania, we're going to be thinking about this probably far differently than what we are right now. But at least it's interesting. You got that. And then since that one, Money in the Bank is completely out of the way because once again, the women can't hold on to the Money in the Bank briefcase for a full day and a half or anything. Which is we got to talk about that again. Like, once is interesting. 2, hey, look at that. 3, okay. 4, what? 5, what? Like, what? They gotta next year let the person hold it for a little bit.
It's so clear that they don't. It's weird because they had 2 briefcase holders that were men for a long time, and they just did their own thing. I mean, occasionally you had like a Kane who would cash in same night or cash in quickly, but like people were able to hold the briefcases for a little while, coinciding with one another. And with the women, it's just been like, no, we can't do this. Someone has to cash in immediately.
Yeah, like we can't juggle both of these at the same time. And we have a bigger plan for the men, so the women just need whatever. I don't know. Ted in the chat says, here, kid, enjoy this title until the big names come back from vacation. That's kind of how it feels in some ways. But then we had the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, our main event, which starts off with all of our introductions. And Adam Pearce comes out and he says, hey, I just want to say, we've been having a great night and let's keep this party going with a little bit of an extra addition to the card. There's going to be an 8th person added to the Money in the Bank ladder match. Are you guys interested? It's Theory. And I chuckled at this. And all the fans in the audience and whatever going, fuck you, because they all think it's going to be Cody. The part of me that likes the trolling thing thought that was great. It did take the wind out of the sails for a lot of things. And then, we'll talk about how this match goes out. But as far as the actual hey, Theory's in the match, what did you guys think?
I was highly disappointed because as soon as I knew that Theory was in the match, it just kind of makes you wait for the ending, And it's also like, if he was going to be in the match, you could have just put him in the match or had a segment where he's complaining to Vince and don't tell me Vince can't appear on camera, like where he's complaining to Vince, oh man, I got screwed, put me in the Money in the Bank or something. Just something.
Tell me why you hated it, Callum.
It's one of those wins out of the sail moments for the crowd because everyone just assumed it was, even though there's zero chance it could be, if they was actually going to be, involved in a match, everyone was hoping for Cody Rhodes. And if not Cody Rhodes, they would have been hoping for someone like, is it someone from like NXT coming up, or is it a debut, or is it something exciting?
John Cena.
Yeah, John Cena. and then it's a guy who they'd already seen wrestle on the show, who they don't like, and who they, I think at this point, have clocked onto the point that this is a guy that's been shoved down their throats, and they're being forced to like it, whether they like it or not. So yeah, I think it immediately just made people feel very uneasy going into this match, because even though there are heels in this match like Rollins and Zayn that people may not have wanted to win over someone like a Riddle or a Drew McIntyre, they still would be okay if that person won. They could be something interesting. I don't think anyone was really looking with any real anticipation of oh wow, Theory's in the match. I wonder what would happen if he wins it. They were just like, oh no, I hope that Theory doesn't win this briefcase. Oh, that's why they had him lose the United States title, and then everyone started to go into this match in a sense of dread rather than anticipation.
So of course, I said that I liked this, and I was like, all right, you know what? Theory might not win. Still, that could be another swerve, because everybody's thinking that Theory is going to definitely win now, and I shut my brain off as far as the idea of, okay, Theory's definitely going to win, and blah, blah, blah. Let's get into that. And I ended up enjoying this match a whole lot. I thought that Omos played a really good part there, just being the huge guy that gets buried under ladders, and 6 of them powerbomb him through the commentary table, which was great. I liked the floating bro off the top of the ladder. That was fantastic. I wasn't the biggest fan of Butch coming out to stop McIntyre. To me, that didn't feel like it was 100% necessary, but I guess you want to do something to try to make it seem like McIntyre could have won. Not my favorite part. I liked Sheamus and Drew McIntyre working together, and we got the RKO off the ladder. That was cool. I enjoyed it.
It was a fun match. I really enjoyed the floating bro off the ladder, mostly because he actually connected with a couple people. I liked everybody ganging up on Omos. It's an old played out spot, but it really worked. I enjoyed the 6-person powerbomb. I didn't like Butch per se, but I feel like we're getting more Sheamus and McIntyre out of it, and they always work well together, so I'm okay with it for now. Riddle cost Rollins, which just means they're going to fight at SummerSlam.
Yeah, it's definitely happening.
Yeah. As far as the finish itself, I like Theory as Money in the Bank, in theory, no pun intended. But if they would have just said he was in the match, it would have made this easier to swallow. You know what I mean? Because this felt like, okay, we're going to have a surprise for the sake of a surprise. But again, if you think about it, Theory makes perfect sense for Mr. Money in the Bank. It's just, he wasn't in the match, so now you feel like, okay, everything I was kind of expecting and potentially looking forward to seeing is no longer there. And that's what I said at the start of this. I call this the road to John Cena 17th, because I think Theory will cash in without touching anybody at SummerSlam, because they're really hammering that home, by the way. They said 3 times tonight, including McAfee at the end of the show, look for Theory to cash in at SummerSlam. And before Theory won, it was whoever wins is probably going to cash in at SummerSlam, because Roman and Brock are in last man standing. So I think that's going to be a huge part of the show. I do think Theory will cash in. And then I think, fuck it, John Cena wins number 17 at some point down the line. Because why not?
I don't... Oh, go ahead, Callum.
I thought the match itself was pretty mid for Money in the Bank match standards. It's like, we've seen plenty of those over the years, so it takes a lot to be super outstanding. I thought last year's one was one of the best Money in the Bank matches they've ever done, whereas this one was just, it's there. It's not one that I'm ever probably going to rush to go back and see. Thought Riddle's spots for the most part were really good, and Omos did play the powerful big man well. Did his spots well. They threw him through the table. That was a nice thing. You had a load of like McIntyre and Sheamus fighting each other, continuing their never-ending rivalry. But other than that, it was just a bunch of people hitting each other with ladders. Zayn was doing some nice stuff of just weaving in and out and trying to climb up the ladder as quickly as possible. So yeah, it wasn't by any stretch. It wasn't a bad match by any stretch of imaginations, but like there's a different level of standard when it comes to Money in the Bank ladder matches, and I don't think this is in the upper echelon of matches they've had in the past. But yeah, with Theory winning, I thought if you're having Theory in the match, he should be there as a distraction where people were thinking, okay, every time Theory climbs, it's going to win, he's going to win, he's going to win. And then you use that negativity that people have towards that potential outcome to make the actual eventual winner have a bit of like relief surrounding it, as well as like this person wins, even if it is someone like Seth Rollins, who is de facto a heel, there will be some sort of positive reaction to it. And I was always told that the mark of a good wrestling show is typically send people home happy. And in this instance, they do actually do the obvious thing based on the setup of the match, which is have Theory come up and claim the briefcase. And so you're just left with everyone just booing or unhappy and negative towards the whole thing. And it's not like every single show needs to have a happy ending. You sometimes need this kind of response. I just don't think this was the right way of doing it. I think, I don't know what he'll do with the briefcase. But I just feel like they are pushing him super hard, and I'm not quite sure he merits it yet.
So I have no idea what their plans are, if they have any plans for this briefcase and the titles, because we're at a situation where Roman Reigns is not around all that often, and that they are only really putting him on the shows that are like the big shows, not Paul White, but you know what I mean. And he is holding both championships, and they have not done one single thing that has indicated that there is a potential split. Everything so far has been, you are defending both titles, it is unified, we just don't have one belt. And Cody is lingering. You would think with The Rock and with Cody that those are two that are like, you can't both be the one that beats Roman. Now you got Theory. Now I don't think that Theory is going to be the one that beats Roman by any means. I also don't think that this is going to lead to Cody fights The Rock at fights Roman Reigns at WrestleMania instead of The Rock, and then Theory cashes in and immediately beats Cody, because then why did we even bother to do the Cody thing? He wins it and then he immediately loses it. That's going to be really disappointing. And you don't have a whole lot of time afterward either. If this is from one Money in the Bank to the next, Theory only has until around July. And they didn't really say when Money in the Bank is going to take place next year, but I don't think it's going to be in, October or so. So I'm really curious what their game plan is. And I don't have a whole lot of faith that they do have a solid game plan, but I like Theory. I'm not in that position of thinking he's been shoved down my throat like a lot of people do. I think that he is just being pushed and they are invested in him, and I'm on board with that. I've liked Theory since I saw him in Evolve. I was like, all right, I could see that guy being the next John Cena. And he's been improving and everything. So I hope this doesn't age well. I hope this doesn't age poorly, I should say. I hope it doesn't age well. It's complete fucking opposite. I hope this doesn't age poorly to say this. I think this could be a really good decision, unless there's some kind of batshit fucking injury thing that gets in the way.
I'm going to put this out there at the very least. You have said that, and I think correctly, that they kind of see Theory as the next John Cena. There's a kind of difference between John Cena and Theory is that they never saw John Cena as the next Hulk Hogan or Steve Austin.
Yeah, he just naturally got there.
Yeah, he naturally got over to the point that he became that. Whereas with Theory, you can tell that they are trying to make him that guy. And it may work in the same way, but it's the same approach they took with Roman Reigns, which is they had to eventually turn him heel to get him over to that level. Whereas Theory is already a heel, and people are already getting... I think it is pretty obvious, because you said it, so it's obvious to you, and it's obvious to, I think, a lot of people, that that's what they want for Theory. And that means that people are going to naturally reject it, because they don't like being told who they should cheer for, or who they should get behind, or who they should boo, or anything, or who they should take seriously. They decide who they take seriously, not the company. And Theory is a guy who is good in the ring, and he's got a good presence, he's got a good charisma about him. I just don't think that, like, I don't say like guys like him are a dime a dozen, but there's nothing super special separating him from, say, a Sammy Guevara. Like, what's really... again, I don't want to compare, like, WWE and AEW, but what's really distinguishing differences between Sammy Guevara and Austin Theory?
Guevara's better in the ring.
Yeah, Guevara's better in the ring. I'd say Theory may have him slightly on promo ability.
Yeah, he does, I think.
But outside of it, they're kind of like at a similar level. Whereas you look at Guevara, it seems like he's perfectly slotted in mid-card, upper mid-card, TNT championship range. And he might elevate up there, but you kind of think that's going to be like 3-4 years' time. With Theory's now got a briefcase, means that he's going to be world champion probably in the next year. I think it's too quick. I think he's being raised up the ranks too quickly, and people will reject it.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that WWE is doing the opposite of what they've done with some other people in the past, where patience is key. And they really just want to go, can we just fucking skip it?
Yeah. Well, this is a different thing, where they want him to be the next John Cena, but they put him on the path to be the next Randy Orton. And don't get me wrong, that path is still a good path to be on. Randy Orton's a multiple-time world champion. He's one of the biggest stars in the company. But he's not John Cena. And this is the path that Randy Orton was on, because they fast-tracked Randy Orton within 2 years to become world champion. And then it didn't work out, and it took him until about 2008, 2009 to actually find himself and become a big star, when he got the Viper character over. So I think it's... I would say that this is obviously going to be the fast track for Theory to become world champion, and hopefully it does work out for him. But I don't have a great deal of confidence in that being the case.
I think the difference is they're so obsessed now in storyline and on TV with being like, this is the next face of the company for nearly 10 years now, because it started with the Randy thing with Bryan about like the face of the company. And now that dictates so much of the story on TV, it makes it hard to just enjoy a guy. And with Theory right now, it really feels like, yep, you're being groomed to be the next Rock or the next Randy Orton. Because, like, Callum's right. It's Randy Orton. It's not John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to fight Cena, but it's a Randy Orton path right now.
Well, you're saying that you think that this is going to lead to John Cena having another world title. Do you think that this is going to be Cena and Theory at WrestleMania, or do you think that this is something else?
No, because I think WrestleMania needs to be Cody. Needs to be Cody winning a title. But I don't see any harm in John winning a belt going into the Royal Rumble or at the Royal Rumble. You know what I mean? And he can lose it to... He can have a match with Rollins. He can lose it in a chamber. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does seem to just muddy the waters a little bit, because it just seems so... Again, I know this was my booking, and I thought that this was very clean cut, but it just seems to really muddy the waters of how do you get Cody, Roman, and Austin Theory as world champions going into WrestleMania, or in those matches at the very least. You can't have Rollins gets Cody, which seems to be an obvious Mania match, and Roman versus The Rock and Theory versus John Cena, and make all 3 of those matches world title matches.
Now, granted, Theory can always just wait a year, but then you ran into the issue that Tony was talking about where I don't want to see Theory beat Cody. You know, I want to see Cody win it and have a run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, what you do in those circumstances, again, this is just now, this has happened, and you're trying to pivot to try and make something make sense. I'd somehow try and get the title on Rollins and make Rollins Cody the title match. Roman The Rock doesn't need a title. You can just sell the marquee on Roman versus The Rock. And then you make Theory versus Cena for the briefcase.
I agree with that.
At
But
Mania?
I also think
Yeah.
if you do Cena and Theory for the briefcase, you can do that now at SummerSlam.
Right.
Yeah, but Cena says he's not going to work SummerSlam. Or at least that's what he's alluded to.
That is true.
He did say he's not sure when that match will happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that I think that we're delayed on that front, and that's probably part of the reason why they put the briefcase on Theory now, because they know that match isn't happening, and they can have Theory just hold the briefcase for a while. I don't know how long. Well, I don't know how long he'll have it for fighting Roman. I mean, face it, he could see him cash it in at SummerSlam because they're in a last man standing match,
and they could have Theory lose. They could have, Survivor Series or whatever. Theory tries to beat Roman, and then that's the end of the briefcase, you know?
Listen, John is notorious for not allowing people to cash in. He stopped Ziggler like 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
He out and out cost Baron Corbin the briefcase, and he squashed Sandow's hopes and dreams. So it's possible. But I think... Go ahead.
I would fundamentally say if they have Theory lose his cash in, then they can probably kiss goodbye any ideas they had of him becoming the next John Cena.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
I might. I don't know. I think that there's an opportunity that you can get out of that, and it doesn't kill him forever. But it's certainly not making it any easier. Put it that way. But, the way that the fans are, if you give the person the championship, they're going to reject them. If you have him
he's already got
lose...
the briefcase, they've already rejected him.
But if you have him lose the cash-in, you're going to get a certain portion of the audience that's going to go, oh, you didn't even do Theory right like that? Come on. This kid deserves to at least win the championship if you're going to give him Money in the Bank. And then maybe that's the way you get around it. But I don't think that's their game plan. I don't think they're thinking, 4D chess or anything out of this.
Well, no, what you do is you have him, now that he's got the briefcase, you have him hold it for a while, and you have him build up a character and build up a strong enough reputation to the point where, I'd say when he wins the title, people will be excited for him because you still want him to be a heel, but at least they'll understand it a bit more and make him feel a bit more, okay, this guy could be a world champion, or, okay, let's see what he does with it, rather than, oh, really, this guy again? Because that's kind of what they're doing with Theory right now, I feel. Like, he's just come off the US title. We just lost the US title on the same show. And now it's just like he loses and then it gets elevated. And that seems to be... Yeah. And so eventually he'll win the world title and he'll lose it. And then based on both this regime as Money in the Bank holder, followed by the eventual reign that he does potentially get with the world championship, that kind of will define his ability... I'm not saying it would be like the be-all and end-all whether he does make it to John Cena status or permanent main eventer status, but it will suggest how long that transition will take, because it could result in it proving to be I would say failed experiment, but one that doesn't work out as well as you would have hoped to, and it takes a lot longer for him to then rise back up because he has to stick around in the mid-card for a little while and build things up again. Or it could go really well and he could be a main eventer like a permanent main eventer by this time next year. Anything is possible.
Either way, he's going to eventually have to slide down the card. Because we saw this with even Rollins. Rollins had a great run with the Shield, won the briefcase, cashed it in the main event at Mania, and eventually had to have a run with the IC title for fans to accept him again. Because he needed that like, okay, I'm going to build myself up and do it right.
And for all we know, we could be talking about SummerSlam ending and our opinions completely change.
And somehow Logan Paul's WWE champion.
I mean, who fucking knows? But
I also, just quickly before we move on, just to finish up, just we'll put it out there. If Theory does win the world title at SummerSlam, I think he becomes the youngest world champion in WWE history.
Wasn't Lesnar 23 or so?
No, he's 25.
Orton was 24.
20.
Yeah, he almost 24.
The one he has to be.
Theory's also 24. His birthday is on August 2nd, 1997, so he would turn 25, like, following SummerSlam. So presumably he'd be younger than... He would be older than the Orton was. But if they class it as him winning the WWE Championship, then he's younger than Lesnar.
That's right. They'll do the whole, well, this is a new lineage and a new belt, so it's Theory now.
Yeah, the youngest Universal Champion.
Interesting, though. That's something to keep an eye on.
But I don't think that was necessarily their direction. I mean, we all seemed like we were heading towards Cody Rhodes, but even then, it might not have happened, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is a very different situation that we're in right now than I thought we were going to be. You know, Liv Morgan has beaten Ronda Rousey, and Theory is the Mr. Money in the Bank, and I didn't expect that to happen, but I enjoyed this pay-per-view a lot more than I thought that I would, and I guess, whether you agree or you disagree, drop your comments below and tell us what you thought. You know, what were your favorite matches? What were your least favorite things? Where do you think that this Theory thing is going to be going forward? And, you know, what's the future for Ronda and whatever else it might be? What stipulation do you want to see the Street Profits and the Usos up against or something? You know, whatever you want to talk about. But in the meantime, let's just round out this chat as well while we're going through our plugs. Let me just make sure that I gotta remove Benoit. Dane says. Frankie says, I will say these are two of the most shocking winners in one night. Very happy for Liv. Yeah, there are definitely some things that we're going to be looking back on better, and some things we're going to probably be looking back on worse. I don't know. We'll do Wrestling Us 2020 down the line about this, maybe. Who knows? And if you want to check out the next things that we've got going on with whatever we've got for the future editions, next week we're thinking maybe the mailbag might happen, Q3 mailbag, but we might do something else in the meantime. I don't know. We'll figure that out over the next few days. Send in your mailbag questions just in case, and stay tuned for that, which will maybe be combined with the hot tags like we've done before. Maybe not. I don't know. Again, kind of up in the air. Maybe we decide to do something else. I am leaning a little bit more towards the idea that we might go ahead and do that combo and earlier in the week record the Darkcast for the month, because that might be a fun way of doing that. Maybe not. But if you stay tuned to the YouTube channel and to the website, you are subscribed and you follow the Facebook and Twitter accounts and you've got your email alert set up and all the other things that go along with this, then you'll be aware of whatever things happen when they do happen. And if you are on the Facebook group, The Megamaniacs, then you can chat up whatever you want to talk about there. If you are over on smarkmama.com, check out all the other articles that we got going up on the daily and the weekly stuff. I've got my other content that's out there for Bleacher Report and Free Wrestling News, which I got to write up another Bleacher Report article about this one with the best and worst booking decisions. Got to think back on that one. I don't know how I'm going to go in that. Ted in the chat says, did Fanboys and On do a review of Black Phone? We didn't do a review of that, but the very short of it is Caroline and I both liked it a lot. We thought it was really solid. Just didn't get an opportunity to do it. But Thor is next week. I'm really going to try to do some kind of review point of Thor, because that I can geek out like crazy about. I'll be like, oh, you know, this one thing, the gore was whatever, and just act like a fucking nerd. But if you want to check out whatever else is happening over on fanboysanonymous.com, hopefully more and more content there, because I just have so much on the back burner, and I really wish that I could get more time to do that. If you want to make sure I do, go to patreon.com/fanboysanonymous and join the YouTube members only content as well. The more support you got over for Fanboys, the more stuff I can do. Frankie says Stranger Things tucking ruled. I think it fucking ruled, but I just typo. Yeah, Stranger Things, I finished that earlier today. Big old thumbs up.
I don't know how you just consume all of that. It's a super long show. I will eventually get to the end of it, but I hear it's phenomenal.
What, the 2 episodes of Stranger Things?
Just like the whole season 4 was it's just incredibly long.
Oh, we breezed through that. Yeah. The only reason we didn't finish the episodes last night was because it just got too late and Caroline was tired. So it was like, all right, we'll pick up the last hour tomorrow. But that's great. The Boys is great. I haven't checked out Westworld yet. Probably don't want to go through the fucking mental gymnastics of that one yet. But yeah, Fanboys Anonymous, you'll find stuff over there. And of course, if you're following what I'm got going on under a mango tree, you can follow what these guys are going and doing on their own side of the creative spectrum. Rob is over in the Dude Felice world.
Yeah, you should check that out, especially on Twitter.
He's also a Terminator or something right now.
Yeah,
you guys hearing that?
Am I a robot right now?
Yeah, you're a Decepticon.
Yeah, well, you can follow me over at Dude Felice. And I appreciate all the support, as always. And hopefully there'll be some other fun stuff coming down the line.
Okay. I'm not Decepticon, am I?
No, you're not.
Okay, that's good. I haven't been taken over by the Terminator just yet, so that's fine. He hasn't found me yet. So you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. You can check out all the stuff that's going on. As Tony says on the Smark Moment website, check out all the weekly stuff. I had the power rankings go up earlier. Earlier yesterday now at this point. So it's out on Saturday. The new one will be out next Saturday. And then there's the Fantasy League to talk about a little bit. We touched on that a little bit.
Completely forgot that we didn't talk about that yet.
Yeah. Prediction contest. Essentially, that was pretty straightforward. We all went for every result the same on every match, except for I picked Bobby Lashley, so I won the prediction contest. So yay me.
Boo.
And
you're worse than a credit card.
So I get to decide who I'm probably gonna. I could hinder one of Tony's guys because Tony is taking a bit of a leap forward.
Do I have gender?
No, you don't have gender.
Yeah, it's anyway.
But I don't think that there's anyone in particular I feel like I can confidently say should be getting half points. So instead, I'm thinking that I'm going to double my points on someone at the moment. Unfortunately, I can't double it on Theory and have it count Money in the Bank. That's very good. But I'll decide it at a later date. I'm at the moment, nothing's really jumping out of me, so I'll decide at least prior to Raw, and one of my guys will have double points for the next month or so.
Doubling it up, and you're not being hacked instead since you're a robot right now. So that's Money in the Bank, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the post show. Hope you enjoyed the pay-per-view as well, even though that wasn't my call, whether or not I'm not running WWE, even though I still get people every once in a while that are like, hey, can you give me tickets to the show, or can you give me a job or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, I wish I could, but can't. So stay tuned for everything else that's happening. Enjoy your weekend if you are going to do something fun tomorrow. And we'll see you on whenever we see you. I don't know when we're going to record next. We'll see you. But in the meantime, that is it. Thank you for listening, everybody. We will see you next time. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.